I'm delighted to welcome Michael Green, the CEO of the Social Progress Imperative. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Maria.
The Social Progress Imperative is our main partner in this project and is the organization that produces the Social Progress Index, upon which this Youth Progress Index is created. Michael will be presenting this year Youth Progress Index main findings, and there will be some time at the end for some questions, so please do not hesitate to tweet them at Ask Youth Progress via Twitter, and then we will be able to have a discussion with them. So Michael, the floor is yours.
That's great. Thank you, Maria. I must say it's been a great pleasure working with the European Youth Forum on this report. And I think to Sylvia's point, I think also continuing the work after the report comes out, taking the journey from index to action to impact, because data means nothing if it's not used as a tool to drive change in the world. And thank you all. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to all of you gathered around the world to hear about this. And we look forward to your feedback. So the Social Progress in the Youth Progress Index. Let me just show you a bit about how this works. But as Maria was saying, this is a particular time in the world when we're living in a time of crisis. We're living in a time of crisis around COVID and also around the climate crisis. And a real question is about how are we going to respond to this crisis? And at the end of last year, we partnered up with our friends at Ipsos and went out and asked people. We asked people across 13 countries and said, how should we respond to, how should we build back after this COVID crisis? And the response was very clear. The majority of people said, when this pandemic is over, we've got to build back focusing on sustainable social progress, not just economic growth. What's most striking was the real difference in the response by age groups. My generation, the 50 plus, lent towards economic growth. But young people, particularly under 24s, really said, we've got to prioritize a recovery from this that is focused on sustainable social progress. So I think this Youth Progress Index report is a chance to bring to the policy debate, to the public debate, these issues that really matter to young people, to make sure that they're on the agenda and part of the debate. Now, quickly to explain how the Youth Progress Index works. It's built on the framework of the Social Progress Index, which ultimately asks three fundamental questions about a society. First of all, does everyone have the basic needs of survival? Essentially food, water, shelter, safety. Secondly, it asks, does everyone have the foundations of well-being? Basic knowledge, access to information, health and wellness, and a good quality environment. And finally, does your society have opportunity for all in terms of rights, freedom of choice, inclusiveness, and access to advanced education? This is the basic framework we're using for the Youth Progress Index. And then what we did is we went out to find data to answer these questions. And here's all the data that we are using. So we've drawn 58 different social environmental outcome indicators, the majority of these coming with a focus on youth to answer these questions. And as a result, we've been able to measure 150 countries completely and 18 countries partially. You can find, if you want to dive into this, there's a full methodological report for you to enjoy and look into all the details. There's full transparency about this methodology. I'll show you what we find. What I've done here is just simply plotted the results with Youth Progress Index on the vertical axis, and then just for comparison, just for fun, GDP per capita on the horizontal axis. And we find, perhaps unsurprisingly, that Norway is the best performing country and Central African Republic is the least well-performing country. And we also see in broad terms, the richer countries tend to do better on youth progress. Again, not really a surprise. If you've got more resources, you can provide more services, deliver more of the things that people need to have a good life. But also look at this chart. See that there's lots of noise around this trend line. GDP is not destiny. The choices that countries make really matter to deliver higher or lower levels of youth progress. Let me illustrate. We can think of it in terms of countries that are above the line are ones that are doing a better job in turning their economic strength into social progress. So countries like Nepal, Costa Rica and Portugal are all overperforming on delivering youth progress relative to their wealth. Whereas other countries, Angola, the United States and Singapore, Although the USA and Singapore are both rich and pretty high social progress, they're actually underperforming in delivering on youth progress for their populations. So that's just a quick snapshot of what we're finding here on a country basis. And as I said, there's plenty more detail about each country in the report, and lots of detail to look at your own country. I want to just take a moment, though, and look at what this means for the world as a whole. Broadly, we've seen that there's quite an uneven pattern of progress across the different components of the Youth Progress Index model. And if you look at this chart, what we see is that the worst performing aspect of youth progress is environmental quality. Now, I think this is really important, and we'll talk a bit more about sustainability later. But environmental quality is definitely the worst performing area. And then we're struggling more in those aspects around opportunity, like rights and inclusiveness, etc. And why this is so striking is if we then look at the trend over time. If we look at the trend over time, over the 10 years we've been able to measure for the world, we've seen there have been some dramatic improvements in the measures of progress, particularly on access to information and communications. The technology to deliver mobile phones and mobile internet around the world has had a huge positive impact on the lives of young people. We've also seen a big improvement in access to advanced education. There's been the global expansion of higher education is seeing a big improvement on the far right-hand side. We're also on, if you look at the left-hand side of the screen, seeing some solid progress in areas around basic needs like nutrition and water and sanitation and shelter. Obviously, it could be faster, but some solid progress. But then look where we're seeing the least progress. I mean, it's very striking that the worst performing aspect of youth progress was environmental quality, and you'll see that we've barely improved on this area. And then you also look then at personal rights. We see this is the one aspect that has actually deteriorated. So 10 years ago, the young people of the world had stronger rights than they do today. And I think that's so important if we're thinking about this agenda about discussing the reconstruction post-COVID and what young people want. If they need to have the rights and the civic space to exert their views, if we're seeing a shrinking space for personal rights, that is very concerning. Now, I think as Sylvia mentioned in the introduction, one thing we've also done with this index is pioneered a new approach. Sorry, let me show, before I get to that, one more thing. Quickly, just to say, although we see the world getting better, we have seen some countries actually going backwards. So we've got 6 countries that have seen a deterioration in youth progress over the last 10 years. The biggest decliners, Venezuela, Syria, perhaps no surprise. But it's very striking amongst this list of countries. Over 10 years, youth progress has actually gone backwards. Includes the United States, Australia, and Hungary, as well as Lebanon. Very, very striking results. That even over 10 years, some of these countries have actually gone backwards. Now, sustainability. We really felt with COP26 coming up, we really wanted to have a look at the sustainability lens around the Youth Progress Index. So what we've done is we've actually adjusted the index with an extra dimension around sustainability. So what we've done is we've said, what's a robust planetary boundaries framework, looking at climate change, biodiversity change, land system change, material consumption. And then we've applied that to adjust and revise the result. So we're taking into account sustainability. There's quite a lot of detail here, but just to give you a very quick snapshot, what we've seen is that a lot of countries, even those that are performing at very high levels of youth progress, have seen that there's a big reduction in their score because of when you make the sustainability adjustment. But what that's telling us is that as we although we see that strong relationship with wealth, with GDP per capita that drives high levels of social progress, it's also driving a problem of sustainability. So we're actually broadly got much bigger challenges than we're facing. And we've got to confront these sustainability challenges if we're really going to deliver on a real progress, especially for future generations and through the lives of young people today. All this details in the report, lots of stuff to dive in. I commend it to you very much. And I think I also want to highlight is the report also pulls out some analysis related to some key mega trends that are really affecting young people, such as the transition to a digital society, the future of work and quality of jobs, and this issue around civic space and youth rights. There's a huge amount in there. We love feedback, so send us your feedback on the report. But also, we're really excited about how this tool, this data, working with the European Youth Forum, working with that great team of ambassadors, can really drive an impact and help deliver better lives for people as soon as possible. Thank you very much.